Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first Wednesday night live program presented to you by our newly formed Thrive Mental Health Wellness Ministry team. I'm happy to be able to make this video for any of you who were not able to attend our first Wednesday night live, which was actually last night, September 29th. Our topic for this series is stress and wellness. We're all in this together. So last night we started by talking about connection. That's going to be our focus of this 15 or 20 minutes that I am bringing you this morning. What I have to do at this point is to move us out of seeing me front and center to seeing our slides. So you will lose me on your screen. And in just a minute here, you are going to be seeing all right, there we go. I am going to start with a brief meditation followed by some music. And I would encourage you, as I'm reading the psalm, to just take a minute to leave everything in your day behind and to breathe and focus in on God and on yourself. This is Psalm 139, and it's verses 14 through 18. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am wonderfully and fearfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. All right, let's begin then to talk a little bit about connecting to de-stress. I'm not sure if this looks like any of you, but it sure is how I feel sometimes. Yes, I am a bit stressed. Sometimes stress is much more apparent to other people than it is to ourselves. I have good news and I have bad news. So I'm going to start with a little bit of bad news. We are created as humans with a brain that is designed to register stress. The good news about us being wonderfully and fearfully made by God is that we are made as both biological, instinctive, surviving beings and conscious, spirit-filled beings at the same time. We're going to look for just a minute at that biological level and think about brains. What you see on the screen here is a dissection of a human brain. That little red, small, round place in the center of our brains with the white arrow that points to it is called an amygdala. The only purpose of that amygdala is to monitor the environment continually for stress. When the amygdala sees or hears or senses something that feels unsafe, it sends chemicals and messages to the rest of our entire body through our nervous system, through our heart, our lungs, our muscles that prepare us to respond to a threat in the environment. So, bad news, we are created to experience stress. There is some good news. One piece of that good news is that while we are wired to perceive stress and then to respond to it through our sympathetic nervous system, we also are wired to calm and to restore to our natural balanced state once the stress is over. So you can see, if you start on the left with the red line that says sympathetic, that's the snake, that's the threat, that's how we get activated. And then once that stress is past, we calm down, and then we go to the blue board on the seesaw that starts from the right and goes to the left and says parasympathetic. So we return to our natural state of rest. Now that's what happens if there's a single stress and it passes. If we are undergoing a consistent stress over and over for a period of time, what can happen is that we will become stressed generally as a consistent state of being. And this is where we need connection, relaxation, and other coping skills to be able to deal with that. These are some of the brief ways that you might recognize that you're feeling stress. So I invite you just to take a minute and to look at each of these 4 areas: cognitive, emotional, behavioral, and physical. Keep a little running tab in your mind as you're looking through and see how many of these indicators you might have. If you are experiencing any of these things on this page, these are more severe indicators of stress, and you would do well to seek additional help if any of these things on this page are consistent experiences that you have. So this is a particular map of stress that I find to be really useful. The point here is that stress is not an external event. Stress starts with an external event, but the experience of stress is actually an internal process. The good news about that is that we can do a lot within ourselves to both respond to and to help ourselves with the external events that create the internal response. We're not going to worry too much about the block on the right that says primary appraisal. That's the topic of a whole complete course about how we see things and how we decide whether something's a stress or a positive. What I want to focus on right now is those coping mechanisms, what we do when we experience stress. Tonight, we're only focusing on connection as a coping mechanism for stress. There are, of course, many, many, many others. And I've given you a reading list at the end of our presentation that you can certainly look at for other coping resources. But at this point, we're going to focus in on how connecting with others is a very important method of dealing with stress. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. So that's that wonderful good news that while we may not be able to control things like coronavirus or the loss of a loved one or a job situation, we can choose what we can do with it and how we help ourselves. Turns out that connection is part of how God created us as humans. This happens to be a picture of my grandson with his new puppy. Turns out that we are wired for attachment. So when a baby is born, it will naturally and automatically respond to the caregiver that is providing food and comfort and safety for that infant. You probably all know about failure to thrive infants. Those are babies who are not nurtured or held and who actually ultimately end up dying because they don't get that nurturing that is so important for us as humans. We've also become aware in the last 10 or 15 years that the failure to attach is one of the key elements that creates serial killers and other sociopaths. Attachment is good news when it comes to stress. A positive, nurturing connection, which doesn't have to be anything physical, but any experience we have that's positive, supportive, or nurturing will automatically reduce stress. Here's another element of how this works. This happens to be a picture of baby mice with a mommy mouse. So it turns out that we have a part of our brain that is called mirror neurons. Those are a particular kind of brain cell which are located on the sides of our brain. And the only function of those cells is to register what other humans are doing in the environment and to mirror that back to our own brain. So if you walk into my office and are eating an ice cream cone, my brain is going to send the very same signals to my brain as if I were eating the ice cream cone. That's really good news for us because that means that any kindness that comes from another person will register through those mirror neurons as kindness and compassion to ourselves, calming, restoring, and alleviating stress. Let's So there's the bad news and the good news. Bad news, we will have stress. The good news is that through connecting with others and the support and care that we receive, we can cope and withstand those stresses that we're experiencing. So I end with one of my favorite quotes from Elizabeth Edwards. She stood in the storm, and when the wind did not blow her away, she adjusted her sails. Here is a list of resources. These are books that deal with mindfulness and compassion. You might pause if you are interested in any of these and make a note of them. There are additional books here. And there are some wonderful resources that are online as well. The mindful.org website has a lot of different things for coping with stress. The CDC has developed a specific mental health page for COVID-19. It also has really good resources. Also, all of you are welcome to give me a call if there is anything that I can offer to you in terms of resources or to point you in a direction that would be useful to you. Our team members, Alicia, Caitlin, Sue, and Jerry, are also very willing to respond and to be of help in any way that we can. So I thank you for listening, and I hope that I will have a chance to see you in person very soon. Thank you so much. And we are now going to return to our regular camera. There we go. All right. Thanks so much for joining in today. Next week, our program is going to actually be a panel discussion. We're bringing in people from the Grief Recovery Center, from North Range Behavioral Health, from Jobs for Hope, and for, let's see, A Woman's Place, addressing interpersonal violence. So that promises to be a really interesting evening. It's going to be Wednesday, October 6th, 6:15 p.m. in the chapel. We're not doing food, but we are doing our program, 6:15 to 7. So I hope you'll be able to join us, and wish you a peaceful, a stress responding day.